Good evening and welcome to the September 11th, 2018 meeting of the Guilderland Board of Education. Would you all please silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin this evening, we'd like to have a moment of silence in remember of those who lost their lives on September 11th, 2001. Thank you. And the first item on our agenda this evening is public comment number 1. Linda, has anybody signed up this evening? Thank you. And now we move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the August 14th, 2018 meeting, the CPSE and CSE recommendations, personnel action items, there's a textbook on there this evening, and the financials. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Barbara, second. Seema. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Ben.
I have a question about something in the personnel item. At the bottom it says emergency fingerprint clearance for 2 individuals. I was wondering if we could explain that a little bit.
Sure. When we don't get the fingerprint clearance back within a 24-hour period, then we ask the board for emergency clearance so that that individual can start with us. Then they have 30 days within which OSPRA at State Education will provide the individuals with some feedback. It's not uncommon that someone's prints don't clear. Sometimes they don't get a good print. Sometimes they've done some out-of-country travel, and it requires them looking a little bit more deeply.
Okay, so this is just a temporary...
Correct. Correct. So what we do until the individual's fingerprints clear is that we ensure that they're always working with another adult and they're not serving children on their own or behind closed doors.
Okay, so we take precautions in the meantime.
Absolutely.
You know how many days it's been since these individuals submitted their prints?
No, I don't know for each individual, but the clearance is for 30 days.
Starting when they started?
When they went for fingerprints. We try to get them to their fingerprints and cleared before they begin. But the start of the school year was coming. One of them happens to be one of our school nurses, so we need to have a school nurse present.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Yes, Barbara.
Somebody there with the blue sheet, I don't know if they came in late, if they wanted to go in the first round, not the second round.
Hi. Did you want to give public comments this evening? Okay.
Oh.
Thank you. Well, you're in for a treat. Okay, now we move on to information items, curriculum and instruction. Damien?
Thank you, Christine. Start with some good news. Each year, the National Association of Social Workers, the New York State chapter, recognizes the contributions of outstanding individuals making a difference in our state. And I'd ask you to join me in congratulating this year's Social Worker of the Year award winner. It's Catherine Ricchetti, who's, of course, the person who spearheaded our therapy dog program across the district. So we want to extend congratulations to her for great recognition.
Absolutely.
There was also that she was asked to apply for a grant. Have we heard anything?
I haven't heard anything. Have you heard?
I saw her at some point, and she said they had way more applications
Yeah,
than
I
they
haven't
had
heard an
expected.
outcome.
However, with this award, it may be that would be
Awesome.
working.
It certainly helps.
I hope so. She's
Yeah.
certainly worthy of it.
And my next item, pleased to report that on August 29th, we had over 100 Guilderland teachers gathered for a day of professional development focused on digital literacies and related instructional practices. This was a summer summit that was planned and provided by our technology cabinet, led by our coordinator for instructional technology, Natalia Lemoyne. All of the workshop sessions were facilitated by Guilderland teachers. And this was an opportunity, it was a powerful step towards successful implementation of our Engaged Learning Initiative, which of course includes the one-to-one Chromebook model for all of our students at grades 6 through 12. And we're looking forward to some similar opportunities offered throughout the school year. And I do want to thank all of the teachers who not only attended, but certainly those who presented as well. They really did a fantastic job. It was a great day. And my last one, a little bit longer, just a bit of a curriculum update for you. And as you know, the Guilderland Central School District is deeply committed to providing our students with the best education possible in order for each to be fully prepared for each level of schooling, as well as for college, career, and life. And as we provide that high-quality instruction, it's essential that our board, our parents, and our families have information about changes in store for their child's educational program. It's been over 7 years, believe it or not, since our last mathematics program modification and adoption at the elementary level. At that time, the New York State had adopted the Common Core Learning Standards and new expectations for student learning. In turn, the district aligned its programs to these new expectations. There was a thorough review of our mathematics programs, which ensued, and that included full evaluation of programs via a pilot approach. And piloting of programs is really critical to ensure that we are able to make fully informed decisions before formally adopting a program which will serve our students for many years. In Guilderland, in the end, we adopted the Go Math program for our students at grades K through 5. Since that time, New York State has again revised its learning standards and has replaced the Common Core standards with the Next Generation Learning Standards. Additionally, instructional practices have evolved, which are demanding greater focus on student inquiry, problem solving, and discourse. And I'll add a little other piece of information here, and that is that the Go Math program we've recently learned is no longer going to be published by the publisher. So we're in a position now where we need to make some decisions about the future going forward. So we will be piloting some new program options in many of our elementary classrooms this year. We have over 20 teachers who have volunteered to participate in this pilot effort. These selected programs are Ready Mathematics and Investigations. Both have been fully researched and vetted by our curriculum cabinet. They are aligned to the Next Generation Learning Standards for mathematics and have been proven effective by school districts which have been using these programs for years prior. We are excited to proceed. We're eager to make improvements to our mathematics program by considering all of the feedback and the information gained via this pilot approach. And I also want to thank the many teachers who have volunteered to assist with this critical evaluation process. They have already, sorry, got a message popping up here. They have already participated in many hours of professional development, collaboration, and planning to ensure that we are implementing the selected programs with fidelity and we're able to evaluate the programs fully. So look forward to a decision, hopefully at some point later in the fall, once we get the feedback gathered and we're able to make an informed decision.
And how long have these two programs been around?
Investigations is in a newer version now that's
Okay.
aligned, but the program itself has been around for quite a while, but it's gone through different iterations.
So they've
and
aligned them
versions.
with the...
Yes.
And the
yes.
other one?
Ready's a
same
fairly
thing?
new one.
Okay.
Ready's been around for about 5 or 6 years, so it's fairly new, but it's a really progressive program, so we're looking forward to trying that out as well.
Okay. Any districts around here been using it? that we've been in contact with?
Strangely, no.
Okay.
Investigations, we actually took a little bit of a road trip and went out to, it's used widely in western New York and in the lower Hudson Valley, Westchester area. So we took a road trip out to Skaneateles and we got to see it in action, talked to some teachers, got a lot of really positive feedback. Many of the highest performing districts in the state actually are using investigations, so that was promising as well. Ready being a fairly new one, it's somewhat new to New York in general, but again, it had some great features that we're looking forward to.
Do these programs provide any support for the piloting teachers?
They do. In fact, Friday, we have a professional development session with the pilot teachers for the Ready program. So they've been gracious in providing us free of cost, I will say, providing us some additional professional development to get them up and running. We had sessions over the summer months as well for all of the pilot teachers, and we had sessions in June. So we'll continue this throughout the course of this year.
So they'll have time during the year to come together and talk about what
Yep.
they're doing?
Math Cabinet met this afternoon, actually, and we've set some dates for what we're going to call focus groups, so all of the pilot teachers can come together, discuss. We did this with the
Yeah.
selection of Go Math as well. We have a couple of surveys in place, so we're on our way. We're on our way.
Lima.
I had a question about that too. So are there teachers at all 5 elementary schools
Yes.
doing both?
A teacher doing both programs?
Well, like, is there at least one, or two, both programs at each
Yes.
elementary school?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you come together, you said later in the fall to decide?
Yeah, November 15th, I think we're going to come together, we're going to review some survey results, we'll have an open conversation with all the pilot teachers.
And then
See
will that make like a decision for the following year, or will they finish out the year?
They'll finish out this year, so the pilot teachers will be piloting essentially for the duration of this school year.
Okay.
So the companies have been gracious enough to give us the materials and resources for the entire year. We don't want to start a program and then pull it out on
Right.
kids midstream, so they were kind enough to allow us to do it for the full year. Because we will have to budget for this as well, we'll have to make a decision around mid-year. But they'll continue with their programs throughout the spring months as well. And then implementation will be in the following September.
And then the Chromebooks, I was just curious like how the rollout is since it's new, the whole one-to-one. Big.
Overall, I think it went exceptionally smoothly, considering the number of devices that we had to distribute in a fairly short period of time. We had a little hiccup with 11th grade because of a delivery delay. We were expecting the devices to come in sometime around the second week of the school year, but they actually wound up coming in the day before kids started. So we were able to get them distributed without really much of an impact. We have, I think, at the high school, I think we have less than 40 that we still need to distribute of the 2,000 or so kids that we have. And at the middle school, I think we're under 10. So we're doing quite well with it. They're off and running. We have had, I will be honest with you, we've had some slowness in the Wi-Fi connections, but we're trying to diagnose that, and right now it doesn't appear to be something that's limited to Guilderland. We've actually been in touch with other districts that are in a one-to-one mode as well. They're experiencing a very similar thing. So we're diagnosing it, that it's actually an issue potentially between NARIC and Spectrum, who is the primary internet provider. So we'll be in contact, we have been in contact with them, and we'll try to get that fixed up.
Barbara?
What grades are the piloting teachers teaching?
K through 5. So this is strictly elementary.
I know, but like in Altamont, is it a third grade teacher and a first grade
Oh,
teacher?
It's a mix in every building, but every grade level in every building are covered. So, for example, in Altamont, we have 2 5th-grade teachers who are piloting. One is doing ready, one is doing investigations. I can pull up the list if you want to see the whole list.
Oh, that's okay, but it's varied from school to school.
Yep,
So some
yep.
schools may have a third grade
Right.
situation.
Right.
Are there any other questions for Damien? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We are going to wait for Cliff Nooney to get here to have Neil provide his information items, so we're going to skip down to superintendent information. Marie?
All right, the first item I have is the opening of school. We have now completed 3 days of the 2018-19 school year, and we've had, I think, a particularly smooth opening in all 7 of our buildings. I've talked with all of our principals, and the thanks to that goes for all the people who worked so hard over the summer to get us ready, our maintenance crew, our transportation department, all of our 12-month staff, and of course our returning faculty and all of the folks who make it all happen. Just had a terrific start to a new year. The Chromebook distribution was probably the biggest unknown and the biggest enterprise of the opening of this school year, but it went remarkably smoothly, as you just heard from Davian. Our facilities look great, nice and clean. People came back happy and ready to learn, and we're happy to have everyone back, and we're underway. So it's a great opening. My next item probably requires a little bit of discussion. This is the proposed list of presentations and program reports for the school year that we have just begun. So if you look at the attachment, there are 4 proposed program reports, as well as some other traditional activities that we've done. So I'm just going to walk my way through, and then you can ask me questions or give me feedback. Our next board meeting, October 2nd, is the employee recognition reception and ceremony. We're getting ready for that. Our October 23rd meeting is our first session where we seek public input for the budget development. It doesn't seem possible that we'll be talking about 1920, but we will. On November 13, we're going to begin our budget vignettes. Damien just foreshadowed that one of them is going to be focused around some of the changes to our curriculum and instruction because of the next gen standards, and some of those will have budgetary implications. But we'll also hear from Neil and others around typical early budget-related topics like the tax cap, state aid, financial climate, and so on. And then on December 4th, we'll be seeking direction from the Board of Education on the budget. The first actual program report, I would like to propose that we ask our now forming task force on start time do its first presentation around the research that they will have compiled and gathered and discussed beginning in late October. My next item is to talk about that, but I already have some people who have signed up to be on the task force. So Aubrey hit send on the SNN and my inbox lit up, so that's great. I'm going to jump ahead and suggest that we look at March 19th and that we have a second report from this group, that time focusing more on proposals to consider. Now, I can't, well, I've said update on progress. I can't tell you what the progress is going to be sitting here, but I'm thinking the first session will talk a lot about the existing research and information that we find out about our own students. And the March 19th would focus more on the additional work that they've done to that point. So that would give us 2 opportunities to hear about that important work. January 8th, we have nothing report-wise planned, but on the 22nd, the title of this is State of the District. And what we're thinking about this program report is an opportunity to take a step back and look at the district kind of in a broad view. What do our demographics look like? What does our student achievement look like? What does our classification of students with disabilities look like? How do we compare to other school districts that we often talk about in relation to our own set of circumstances? This is in some way a response to the conversation regarding the business review. So what we have been talking, when I say we, Damien and I have been talking about this quite a bit, can we gather some data to paint a comprehensive picture of our district? And it's early enough in the year, so if there are things that we want to do differently that will have budgetary implications, we'll have time. I'm interested in your feedback if there are particular kinds of data points that you would like for us to make sure that we gather. Obviously, I don't have to hear it right now, but we're going to begin working on this soon, working with Mike Bastian to gather information for us. February 11th, no program report. On the 5th, you will hear the first draft of our 2018-19 budget. On the 12th of March, we'll have our Q&A around the budget. I've already spoken about the 19th. April 2nd will be the board budget workshop. The 9th, budget adoption. The 7th of May, the budget hearing. May 21, budget vote and elections. May 28, retiree and tenured reception and ceremony. And then our last program report for the year, we'd like to take a retrospect on this engaged learning initiative that we've been talking so much and say, well, how did year 1 go with this one-to-one Chromebook engaged learning program? And that is the year. So I'm interested in your feedback. This is a draft. It's our initial thinking, but that's where we are at the moment. Judy.
Are we going to get to have any student presentations, or do we schedule those closer to it?
Yes. We don't call them program reports. We will have, and we attempted to get some students in for tonight, but day 3 is a little bit. So we will try to have a showcase of student work at each of our board meetings going forward.
That'd be nice. Nice. Thank you.
Question, Judy. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Mary. Oh, Barbara.
I don't know if this would fit into this or if it fits into the state of the state, but I'd love to see what we're doing with our student internships that we talked about when we had the business.
Our school to work.
Well, not just the school of work, no, the internships where the kids go down to the legislature or they go to Alton Med or, that type of thing. And also with the renewed emphasis on students not necessarily going to college, but having a career, be it electrical, mechanical, masonry, heavy machinery, how many kids do we have going to BOCES, and, how much do we publicize those types of things?
That would be one data point that we would absolutely want to put in there.
Teresa, does that come into play in the business review? Like, is that one of the criteria that they use in, because I know that they use like graduation rates and test scores. Test scores is big, but I don't know if they have that in consideration.
I don't believe so. They're not very forthcoming with their methodology.
I've tried to research it myself, and I find it very difficult to really get any sort of formula.
There's a couple paragraphs, and then when you call the gentleman who's in charge, he sends you back to those couple paragraphs. It's proprietary, is what he told me, so.
Well, I mean, it makes sense to want to know, well, how did you come up with this?
Right.
And I understand it's proprietary, but it's kind of important to know, well, how did it get to this? How did you get 1, and how did you get 100?
Right.
Gloria, what about with regard to inclusion or the co-teaching model? Do you have any thoughts about where we're going? Maybe we don't need a program report, but...
I think we would want to include that in this kind of state of the district because it has been the single most focused instructional approach we've had in the last 3 years. But so we would want to show some information about the numbers of co-taught classes, how our students are performing in those classes, the Regents' performance, discipline referrals, attendance, and other data points that we have. We have been looking at a lot of that. I know Mike Piscatelli in the high school keeps a close eye on our Regents results, and it's a happy story to tell. So that would be another area that we would like to fold into this whole kind of comprehensive
Yeah,
view
but, I
of-
mean, it's something we've been putting a lot
Of
of time and
resources
energy
in,
to
yes.
looking at some evaluation now of it, or some, to see if we are going in the direction that we thought we would be going.
Maria, I think another area that we talked a lot about when we were doing the budget last year is our class size guidelines. And that, I think the board agreed we wanted to take a closer look at them this year to determine whether we're comfortable with where they are. Do we need to shift them? But I think we need to close that conversation once and for all.
I think one of the data points that would be helpful there is some comparative information around class size, to see are we in the ballpark with our peers that we compare ourselves with, and that data is available. It's on a year lag, unfortunately.
But how do you get at, when you do that comparison thing, how do you get at, for example, we're using models that probably are different, teaching models in the classroom that are different, and that may affect the need for a smaller class size, or, so how do you get at that? Because if you're doing co-teaching and you're doing inclusion, that may lend to a different attitude towards the class size that you would expect.
Right.
So
It's a great question.
That's a very difficult fine-tuning.
There's another statistic that I've looked a little bit at, and that is the ratio of adults to children across the district. So how many children for every one adult? Our numbers are quite low in that area, but that's something I'd like to dive into more. Some of the questions that I think you have will end up being more qualitative and quantitative. This may be the kind of program report that we do every year. So this year we lay out some data points, things we might want to look at, and build from there in subsequent years. Maybe dive deeper into areas that are of more concern or that seem more interesting or more fruitful, where we can, if need be, reach out and do some other qualitative kind of data gathering.
Is there data also for the TAs, like the number of TAs and how they're spread out? I know you said there was like a TA shortage here.
Yes.
So I don't know if there's a point that we could also look at in comparison-wise to other districts.
We can look at that.
Ben?
I think this is a good idea, but instead of maybe like one big, huge presentation with tons of data, you could share progress as you go, maybe not at board meetings, but in weekly updates. You know, this week I was looking at gathering data for this data point and stuff. Just because I tend to like to look at data myself, and so, you know, if you're accumulating all this stuff, you know, probably on January, 15th, I'll be like, hey, can I see some of the data sets that you used? And then you know, I have a mountain of, you know, it's exactly what you've been working through for months. So, I don't know, it just seems like this is, 3 months away, tons of great data, or we could get some data as we go along, if possible.
Part of this is meant to be public, though, so what I communicate on Friday is not.
Right.
So we'd have to think about,
Well, like,
How to play that
you
out?
can do the state of the district. I was just,
It's easier to digest in smaller pieces.
right, if we're going to look at, 20 data points, comparing different districts and over time, and it's just a lot to handle in one sitting, I think.
Anyone else? Okay.
I did like the idea about the breaking the start time task force. I think, having a task force and then putting in a report partway, I like that idea. And the research first, the time to think, and then when they can get input from us at the same time, and the direction to move forward.
that's a nice segue to my last item. So today, we widely shared a letter inviting every stakeholder group you can think of in the community, parents, faculty, students, community members, to consider participation on what will be a working group. This is not come and listen to a PowerPoint, but a working group to focus on school start times. So we sent the letter out by email, SNN, it's on social media. A letter to the editor is going to the Enterprise. I think it's there now. Thank you, Elizabeth. And so we're reaching widely to encourage people to participate in this work. The other thing I wanted to share that is late breaking, we've been invited to send some representatives from our group to join the Bethlehem and Niskayuna teams who are also working on this, probably in early October. So I quickly said yes to that so we can begin to build some regional momentum. So that's good news. So stay tuned, there'll be a lot more on this as we go along.
Is there objective, so this year is basically like to investigate and research, is that, like, there's no like timeline set where like, oh, they're gonna do this, present, and by the end of the academic year, there's going to be a recommendation made, or are you going to update as like we go along, depending on what they say?
The latter, as a matter of fact, in my original proposal, I think I said we'll be done by February. And then when I wrote the letter, I had to take that out because I knew it was not true. And so I said that the committee would meet until they are ready to make a recommendation to the board. So I think it's going to take longer. Part of what I would presume has to happen is some review of transportation routing, and we will need professional help with that. We'll need Versatrans to do some of that work for us. So there'll be some costs involved in that. So this is a longer journey than a couple months.
Are they gonna do anything like, remember, what was it, Glenn's fall superintendent that presented? He talked about them doing a sleep study, or, I don't know if it was a survey with the student, I don't remember the details, but is that going to be? or
Well,
at least
I'm trying to make, this is supposed to be an exercise in shared decision-making, so it's not the Marie Wiles, let me tell you what you have to do. However, I have suggested that one question we might want to explore is, what's the status of our own students? I mean, how do they report on their own sleep habits? And the committee will need to, not Marie, create the questions and the mechanism to gather that information. But we absolutely have to hear from our own students, I think.
Any other questions or comments for Marie? Barbara?
Which I know there's sincere interest on the part of Bethlehem and Niskiuna, as well as ourselves, to really dig into this and hopefully change things. But do you have any contacts with Shaker? I mean, I'm just thinking of the athletic conference that is always the big if. Shaker or Colony, which, we tend to be with all the time.
So the answer is yes. We talk about this every year in the Suburban Council, and I think Regan's group does among the athletic directors. I think districts are in different points of readiness to ask the questions and see what the implications would be. But Regan today was the second person to say he'd be willing to serve on the committee. So, and he has a strong, persuasive voice among his colleagues in the athletic world. And it'll certainly be a topic among the Suburban Council superintendent.
Any pediatricians yet volunteer?
It went out today, yeah. And they're not due until the 28th of September.
I just wanted to mention, I don't know when the last On Board came out, but the last one I read had an article about a district here in New York that moved their start time recently, and they were talking about issues with the sports and how they might handle that. Also, might be interesting to note that California recently passed a law which said that all middle and high schools can't start before 8:30. So there might be data coming out of there.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll move to board president information. There's 2 items this evening. The first relates to the board handbook. The full manual was presented for an information item this evening. I think you all had an opportunity to review it on the portal with the addition of page 10, suggested standard response to emails. Is there any discussion on this board handbook? Barbara?
I had a couple of questions with the last thing that we had, the suggested standard response to emails. Over the years, if somebody has written me, I have always basically responded and said, thank you for this, and basically shared my opinion, saying that it's my opinion, whatever it is that they're asking about. And I just see this as being very censored, that you can't respond to one of your fellow citizens and say, thank you for your letter, and, we'll bring up the matter, or we'll discuss it further, or whatever. It just seems counterproductive to a democratic society.
I don't think the intention was to limit those communications, and of course you're always free to communicate. I think what we ask is that if you do communicate, you copy everybody else on the board so that they're aware of it. I don't think it specifically says it in that procedure, but this is a minimum. But it's not to censor you or tell you not to respond. Of course you can respond.
We just want to make
It
sure
says here,
anybody,
thank you for taking the time to
But
write
read what it
and
says.
share your thoughts with us.
but
I
are you
have
reading number
forwarded
1?
your email.
Are you reading number 1?
Thank you for taking the time to write and share your thoughts with the board. We
Yeah, but
generally
that's
appreciate
just to
your
make,
input.
that's just to make sure that everybody who does email us gets a response, something. Like, it just doesn't get lost. You can respond, of course, but make sure everybody knows. You can say, you can express your opinion about any topic. If you want to.
To me, that wasn't clear. It looked to me, when it says that all you can do is type, thank you for taking the
Now,
time.
that's kind of default, like if you don't know the answer.
Right.
Or you know the answer will need some
Standard
additional
response, that's all.
research, so that it's not that no answer goes out. So I think we can clarify that a little bit. There's some other,
Yeah. There's a few things in that one that, a couple of spelling things, and then changing the pronoun. That we used she a lot, and I changed them all to the superintendent. That was it. But we can clarify that piece, but there was never any intent of keeping anybody from, you could communicate whatever you want. We just wanted to cover the fact that somebody, like Seema raised this a couple of years ago, that somebody doesn't get a response at all, and that we all know what's going on. That's all. That's the only intent of that.
Now, the other thing was communicating with the media. Again, over the years, I've gotten tons of calls from usually the Elk One Enterprise, but sometimes Time Junior or something, and made it clear that I'm glad to answer their questions, but it's me speaking to them.
And that's all.
But again, reading this, it looks like only the president can talk to the,
Only the president could speak on behalf of the board. You could speak for yourself as an individual, but the
Right, well-
president speaks for the board.
Again, that
or a
wasn't-
designee.
And then Barbara, remember too, the kind of disclaimer on the front of the book that indicates this is a guide, this is guidance document,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
not a
required.
policy.
It's not a policy, it's just more informational. If something comes in and you don't know what to do, maybe
I know,
it's in the
but-
And it
handbook.
says, if a board member wishes to speak to a media representative, but is not designated, they should clarify at the beginning of the interview they're speaking for themselves. That's fine.
right, but when you have up above that, in speaking to a media representative, the board member will remind media representative of the official position or action already taken by the board and refer them to the spokesperson for further information.
Right, if you do not wish to speak to them, but then the next one says, if you wish to speak further, go ahead. But just reiterate that you're speaking for yourself, that's all. And they are, and I agree with you, Christine, these are guidelines, they're helps, hopefully they'll help people make decisions on what they do.
Yep, and just kind of
Rules or.
have a better information flow so that everybody at this table knows what's going on and that community members are getting responses and people understand what's happening. Are there any other questions or comments on this? I think we'll be asked to act upon this at the next meeting. If that's correct.
Yes.
Tim?
Aren't there spots that aren't finished?
I thought we finished our.
There's
Tim, did you
typos,
have-
like you said, right?
Huh?
There are
Yeah.
typos.
There's
and
a couple of
yeah.
typos I picked out, and the changing of the pronoun from she to the superintendent, because we don't know. And then we did, I think we finished all parts we. Do you have something, Tim, that we didn't finish?
I'm probably not going to be able to find it
Well,
now.
that's all right, you can email me,
There
because
was-
we have a
there
meeting
was-
this Friday.
There was just a note on one page that said something like 3 through 6 to be determined or something like that. I thought that's what I saw.
Okay, well, if you
I'll
find
keep
it,
looking.
just let me know by Friday, and we can do it at the meeting.
Oh, it's conducting self-evaluations for the board, page 26.
We haven't decided that yet. We have, that's what our goal is this year. Communications Committee is one of the goals, is to identify an evaluation instrument
That's
that we
another-
could use. That's on our agenda for Friday.
So we didn't want to hold up the whole handbook on that. That's why it says these last three are still
Okay.
under construction.
Good memory, Tim. I forgot about that one.
Anyone else? Okay. The next item relates to the New York State School Board Association 2018 Voting Delegate Guide. On August 24th, board members received by email the 2018 Voting Delegate Guide, which will be voted on at the Fall Convention in October of 2018. The guide contains the report of the Resolutions Committee as well as endorsements received by the deadline. A Google survey of the proposed amendments and resolutions has been prepared and shared with each board member to complete, which will be used by the Board of Education voting delegate at the NYSBA convention. Results will be collected and shared at the October 2nd board meeting. Board member Judy Slack is the voting delegate for the 2018 convention to be held in New York City on October 25th through October 27th. If requested, at this time, we can discuss the proposed amendments and resolutions that will be voted on at the fall convention, or we can have a more detailed discussion on October 2nd. I know it's still kind of early. Does anybody have any
The only
feedback
question
on
I
this
have, I
one?
don't know if Neil could help me out with, because I put a question mark next to it. I don't know if you read these. Something called piggybacking. When they're talking about transportation, NYSBA would like to allow piggybacking between districts. And what's the difference between that and, I read it over and over again, I couldn't figure out the difference between what we do when we agree to meet, and
Halfway.
move kids, and then piggybacking.
Piggybacking is a term in purchasing that's become more recent in terms of allowing school districts and other municipalities to piggyback on other contracts, whether they be state, federal, county, or other local contracts. So it says if one governmental agency goes ahead and conducts a bid for a product that others might be interested in, if there's certain language within that bid, and that's been adopted by our board, which it has, we're allowed to basically access that contract. So it's sort of like the state contracts, OGS contracts, where right now the state does a number of bids. School buses is a great one, and all school districts are automatically eligible to get that same pricing that was negotiated by New York State. This would extend to contracts by other local forms of, or local state or county forms of government.
So when we do that cooperative busing, when, between the private school, how we set that up, that's not what's going on, they're saying, that's allowed.
I don't know how they're using the term, but the piggybacking is a specific term for
Yeah, they're saying that if the
purchasing.
district has a contract, transportation contract, they would like, NISBA would like it to approve that another district can work. And we're not doing that when we move kids? It's got nothing to do with
No,
our...
we're doing our own bids for transportation, and they're really specific in terms of where our students have to be
Right.
located. What's happening now is contractors might bid for multiple schools and might make their own runs work together among multiple schools.
Oh, okay.
We do some sharing among schools, as you know, if a
Yeah.
sister school is bringing a student to a certain location and we have a need to get one student there and we're going in another direction, we can pick up one of yours, drop off one of yours. We do some of that, but I guess I'd have to see that a little more closely to understand exactly what they're talking about.
I couldn't figure out the difference between the two things.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments at this time? Ben?
Just as it relates to like the school start task force, resolution 4 or 5 was about extending the school year, starting it earlier, starting in August. With the new requirements from state ed are that instead of 180 days with X amount of hours per day, it's 180 times 5.5 hours for students. So it's probably a bigger thing than probably the task force we're starting can handle. But I don't know, if we helped push for more flexibility with the school year, it might be easier to fit changes to the schedule of the day with some of the concerns that we have about making sports events and buses and stuff if we have more days to work with.
That's a good point.
I thought that was an interesting one.
Barbara?
And you're referring to the new requirement that you can't count a half day as a full day, correct?
Well, so you can under certain circumstances, but what I was talking about was that before you had to have 180 school days, instructional days, and there had to be a certain number of hours of instructional time in each school day, which I think was 5.5.
It depends on the level.
Right, for kindergartners it's 5 and so on. But now instead of 180 days with that many hours, it's 180 days and that many hours. So 180 times 5.5 or whatever the level is, you have to meet that many hours, and you have to have a school day, 180 school days. So you can kind of break it up differently, theoretically, now than you could before, which allows for more half days. I think you have to have a certain number of hours in school for it to count as a day, but
You need a total of 900 hours during the year at the elementary level and a minimum of 990 at the high school level. So, but you still need 180 days of instruction. This gives you flexibility for half days, because under the old regulations, it was a minimum number of hours in a week that you had to meet. So if you take a week like Thanksgiving, and if you wanted to have a half day in there, you actually couldn't count the half day because you would not have met your weekly minimums and you would have lost state aid. So it was a huge 2-year discussion about this. So there is actually quite a bit more flexibility under these new rules with the 900 and the 990, but there isn't flexibility about when you can start the school year. You can't start before September 1st.
That's what this is calling for.
Right.
To give the flexibility to start before September
Right.
1st.
right, because the school year also has to end the last Regents Day, right?
Yes.
Unless the commissioner gives you a bye for weather or something. So, so that means that there's only 190 days to choose from, for our 180-day school year. So, like I said, it would be interesting to have the possibilities and flexibility, especially as we change things.
Barbara?
Question, how does Niskayuna then start their opening day, not with the kids, but with the teachers in August? What they have?
We've started in August before too, but we work with the GTA and we have a memorandum of understanding that it's a one time only in order to make the calendar work.
Kids can't.
Kids can't start before
Kids-
September
teachers
1st
don't
for aid purposes.
I thought of you, Damien, when I read resolution number 18. I don't know if you read these, a smart school bond.
Skimming them right now.
It says that they're asking that the Smart School Bond Board meet monthly and promptly respond to requests.
Well, I do have good news. We
I-
did just get approval a couple of days ago.
They must have read
They met on the
NISBA's
6th,
resolution.
so
I thought of you right away.
I'm all for that one.
I know, I wrote yes.
And these are issues that we want NISBA to work on, not are confirmed as law, right? We just want
Yeah,
NISBA, we show our
continue to
support to NISBA so that
legislatively work
NISBA
on them, yeah.
can work on it, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, understand that Cliff is not here yet, so we can move down to the action items. Neil, if you'd prefer.
Sure.
Okay.
Do that. Let's get going. Okay, the first item this evening are a number of service agreements, and the recommendation is that the following contracts be approved for the 2018-19 school year. The first is with Barbara Collins, OTR, and Hillcrest Academy, Northeast Parent and Child Society, and Vanderheiden. And these are all programs that serve students with disabilities.
May I have a motion to approve the service agreements? Seema, second. Teresa, are there any questions or comments on these agreements? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0.
Next item is a memorandum of understanding with Schenectady Community College, and this is to make available college and the high school courses to high school students for college credit. Of course, we're happy to have another opportunity for students to receive some college credits while still in high school.
May I have a motion to approve the MOU? Gloria, second. Judy, any questions or comments? Yes, Teresa.
I always had a question regarding the college credit courses, Neil. How do we know what is acceptable, the number of credits that would be acceptable to numerous colleges? Like, are these accepted credits accepted, I don't want to say nationwide, but how do we know that it's not just going to be accepted at going to Schenectady Community College at graduation versus going to Union?
Pass that one off to either Damien or Mike.
It's really a good question for our guidance department, but we have many opportunities for college credits to be earned by students, whether it's AP courses or college in the high school, university in the high school courses. There is no guarantee that they'll be accepted universally. In fact, I would dare say that we don't have any that are accepted universally. But most colleges will accept.
That's more of my question. I know it's not going to be universally, but is it a larger number or is it a small?
It's a good
schools?
number, I will say. I mean, I can't give you an exact number by any
Okay.
means, but it's a good number. We haven't had any complaints of credits not transferring from them, so.
Okay, thank you.
Ben?
Just to address your question a little bit more as someone with a lot of experience with taking college credits into college. Since Schenectady Community College is a SUNY school, most SUNY schools will accept it.
That's good to know.
For AP courses, with the exception of maybe Binghamton or something, the AP courses that we offer, every school has its own policy, and you can go on AP's website and find out,
Oh, okay.
because they'll correspond with the schools.
So a student can make that choice by saying, okay, I'd like to take this because I'm interested in this college, and at least it would transfer.
Right. For example, we offer in the high school SUPA Econ, which we get Syracuse University credit for, instead of AP Econ. So depending on what school you're going to, maybe you also want to take the AP exam, even though you have super credit, because the college that you're going to is more likely to accept AP credit than Syracuse University.
And these are always conversations our guidance counselors will.
Right. Every college is very different, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0.
Next is a resolution for the board to accept the 2017-18 annual risk assessment prepared by Questar 3 BOCES and approve the corresponding management response and corrective action plan as recommended by the audit committee. I'll just take a couple of minutes and briefly go through the recommendations that were made as part of the financial risk assessment. In the area of extra classroom clubs, the recommendation is that a report should be prepared or generated detailing the beginning and ending inventory for all product of this purchase for resale. This report should then be compared to the cash collected, and any discrepancies should be investigated. In the area of transportation, to ensure the inventory accountability system is operating efficiently, the Transportation Department should perform a physical inventory annually, compare the results, and document any variances. In terms of some reporting requirements, the school district should, in a timely fashion, post on its website any final audit report issued by the state comptroller. Again, in extra classroom, if the district's going to have extra elementary clubs function, the Board of Education should determine if the extra classroom activities are operating in compliance with New York State Education Department requirements. Another comment about extra classroom, and that's that the faculty advisors should ensure that they are properly collecting sales tax from the proceeds of fundraising events. In the area of fixed assets, the district should consider performing a complete physical inventory on fixed assets to ensure proper accountability. In the area of operations and maintenance, due to the upgraded electronic fuel system, the Transportation Department should send to the facilities director monthly fuel consumption reports to show transactions made by the department staff and to review for reasonableness and to identify irregular transactions. All irregularities should be investigated and the results documented. In the area of claims auditing, the claims auditor should refer to all negotiated contracts to ensure the organization is being billed appropriately. Also, that the district should revise Board Policy 6830.2 regarding information about meals and refreshments. The policy should be enhanced to define the types of expense that are reasonable and provide clarity to all staff. So that is the list of recommendations as part of the risk assessment.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the annual risk assessment? Tim, second, Teresa. Are there any questions or comments? Yep,
I haven't served on audit committee yet, so do they use this for the?
This was reviewed by the audit committee.
Okay.
I was going to ask if anybody on the audit committee had anything they wanted to add about this.
It's very thorough.
Ben?
I don't know if they've talked about it since I was on the audit committee, but, there's an attachment here about our response, and a lot of the comments are comments that we get every year, but that we do our own cost-benefit analysis on, and we just, it's not worth it. So, in other words, we're aware of the issues, but we think that we're still doing okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0. Neil, I'm just going to bring you back up.
Yeah, Lynn just reminded me I missed
Okay.
an item, so I apologize for that. So we have an internship agreement, and the recommendation is that we approve the agreement with Sage College to accept students for intern and practicum experience and authorize the superintendent of schools to execute the agreement.
May I have a motion to approve the internship agreement? Judy, second. Barbara? Are there any questions or comments on this one? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0.
Next is a recommendation for award for dual-purpose copy paper, and the recommendation is to reject all bids and re-advertise. We only had one bidder for this bid. We typically have 3 to 5. We did find out after contacting vendors who normally respond that didn't respond, but there must have been some issue with the mailing because several vendors did not receive requests for bid. So we feel with only one bidder, not being sure exactly how competitive they are without seeing other responses, that it's in the district's best interest to reject the bid, re-advertise, and go through the process again.
May I have a motion to reject the bid? Ben, second Seema. Are there any questions or comments on this one? Judy?
How long will that process take?
We'll probably get out the notice tomorrow. We're just waiting for the board to act on this rejection and then move forward with it.
Okay, so it'd be soon. I mean, I'm just worried
Yes.
about paper supplies.
Yes, and so are we. So we just need to get this action done. We've been in contact with the other vendors to make
So
sure
they'll be
they're on
looking-
board and
yeah.
are looking for it. So we'll go through that process again, make sure everybody's aware and get that done as quickly as possible.
Any other questions or comments? Gloria?
Out of curiosity, do we see a decrease in the amount of paper we're using based on us going more electronic?
I think we have over time.
We track that?
Well, we have the mechanism now to track it, where we didn't in previous years have a great tool to be able to track that. So we introduced last year a system that's called Paper Cup, which basically allows us to monitor the usage very closely, look at peaks and valleys in the uses over the course of the year, compare color to black and white, all those kinds of things. So we're much better equipped to do that now than we were in past years.
I was just thinking, generally we used to say, oh, we get a tractor trailer full at this time of year,
Right. I can say I think so.
Yeah.
But we're in the process of really monitoring it closely now. But I do think there has been a reduction in paper consumption over time.
Hope so.
Yeah.
We definitely have had a reduction over time, and paper cut should accelerate that as well.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0.
And finally, tonight, we have several donations. The first is from School Systems Federal Credit Union, who's donated 8 backpacks and school supplies. NBT Bank also donated various school supplies. And Girl Scout Troop 1463 also donated school supplies to our students. So we're very appreciative of those donations.
May I have a motion to accept the donations? Teresa, second Judy. Any questions or comments, other than thank you for the very generous donations? They'll definitely go to good use. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0. We will continue on with the action items. Marie?
My first item is a request for the board to approve the certification of lead evaluator for building principals, and that would be yours truly as the superintendent of schools.
May I have a motion to approve the certification of qualified lead evaluator for building principals? Judy, second Barbara. Questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0.
The next item is similar, is the certification of qualified lead evaluators for teachers under APPR, and this includes all 7 of our school building principals and Lisa Knowles, our PPS director.
May I have a motion to approve the certification of qualified lead evaluators for teachers? Barbara, second Gloria. Questions or comments on this one? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0.
My next request is the approval of a co-curricular club called UNICEF, and it is a club that wants to meet twice a month to empower students at Guilderland with the resources and skills to become effective global citizens.
May I have a motion to approve the formation of a co-curricular club? Gloria, second Tim. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0.
Next is the recommendation to approve our annual plans. These are safety plans at the building level. The board reviewed these in executive session earlier tonight.
May I have a motion to approve our annual plans? Gloria, second Judy. Any questions or comments on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0.
And lastly, requesting the board approve the memorandum of agreement, which includes the resignation of an employee based on our conversation in executive session earlier this evening.
May I have a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement? Ben, second Seema. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 8-0. Okay.
And I have just heard from Cliff that he's not going to be able to make it, so we should.
Okay. So we will move back up to information items. Mr. Sanders.
Okay. We'll start with the 2017-18 independent audit process. In accordance with procedures enacted under the State Comptroller's five-point plan, a draft of the 2017-18 fiscal year independent audit report will be reviewed with the District Audit Committee, who will then make the recommendation to the full board for approval. The regulations also require that the district's independent auditor, West & Company, present the audit report to both the Audit Committee and the Board of Education. The Audit Committee is tentatively slated to review the draft audit report on September 20th, with board approval of the final audit report at the regularly scheduled meeting on October 2nd.
And the audit report itself, will that be posted to the portal the Friday before the meeting, or
Yes.
can it be posted a little bit earlier since it's more voluminous than some of our other documents?
We can certainly do that. There's just an editing process. The Audit Committee will look at it. If there's any changes they want to make to the document after that, and then we can get it.
Okay, great, thank you.
And the next item is our capital construction project. I'm going to go to the projector for that. So what we wanted to be able to do is share with the board and the community some of the information that we've gathered so far and will be available to the community regarding our capital project vote that's coming up on October 16th. This is our homepage. This is one of the banners that will scroll. We have 4 rotating screens, but one of them will be our capital construction project. Down below, we have 2 areas. If you noticed on the far left, it says under news headlines, capital construction project referendum set for October 16th. That's one way to get to the information. Down below, under quick links there in the center, the second item is capital project. That's another way to get to the same information. So I'm going to click on that. This is the screen that will come up. Not seeing our video, though. Let's try that. Oh, okay, good. This is what you should see when you click there, the very first item. Before we get to the video, which is what we want to show you this evening, just talk a little bit about the process if you're not familiar with it. So we had 22 representatives as part of our facilities committee, and we had a broad representation of stakeholders. We had a Board of Education member, Judy Slack. We had administration. We had teachers. We had support staff. We had PTA members. We also had community members that had either construction or facilities experience. And we also had 2 students on the committee. So we tried to make a very diverse, broad stakeholder group that would look at the information that we're presenting. And that group of 22 individuals met for 4 months, and really we're looking at assessing the needs of the district and determining priorities for improvements that we need to make to our facilities. We did have assistance from the district's architect, CSR, and construction management firm, Turner Construction. So they were helping us to understand what the needs were and how to assess and evaluate those. But it was really the committee's role to look at all that information, think about what the community would need and want and desire, and put together a recommendation for the Board of Education. They completed their work at the end of June. We had a report that we shared with the board in July. In August, the board actually approved the recommendation in the committee. So that brings us to this point where we're now ready to move forward with a bond vote for October 16th. To give you a little sense of what's on the page besides the video, which we'll show shortly, under the More Information tab on the far right, we have the full Facilities Committee report. It's about 30 pages. There's a narrative portion, and it talks about all the recommendations. And then there's also all of the items that were looked at each of the buildings as potential needs. And that's an appendix attached. That's about 30 pages long overall. And then we had a PowerPoint presentation that we showed on July 5th. That's the next item under there, the Facilities Planning Committee presentation. So it kind of summarizes the information and highlights the information in another digestible form. And then finally, we have voter information. So what you need, when the voter registration dates are, information that you would need to know in order to be able to vote on October 16th. And then at the bottom, we have some narrative here talking about how the committee really thought about the priorities here in 3 distinct areas of safe and secure, healthy and comfortable, and future ready. And we'll see a little bit of that in the video. And then some timeline information and infographics. So we also have finally some pictures here that will scroll when you hit the screen, so automatically scroll through and show you some examples of the work that are under consideration as part of this project. So with that being said, what we really want to show you is the video. This is the culmination of the work of the committee, the 22 members. And really what we're trying to do is encapsulate the work of that committee in a very brief video that took place over 4 months. So it was a bit of a challenge. I want to give a lot of credit to Aubrey Kamler, who is our public relations specialist in the BOCES Communication Service that really helped with this. You're going to see several members of the committee speaking during the video and sharing their perspective. So we hope we find this informative and interesting. Hopefully it's going to load.
Hi, I'm Sally, and I'm a student at Guilderland High School. It is important for each and every student to be ready for the future. One way that we do that in Guilderland is to make sure that our schools are safe, healthy, and comfortable, and equipped to prepare us for what's ahead. That's why the residents of the Guilderland Central School District will vote on October 16th to decide on a $42.7 million capital construction project that will enhance the safety and security of our buildings and grounds, make our learning environments more healthy and comfortable, and modernize many of our learning spaces.
I like to condense our mission statement here in Guilderland down to 4 simple words. All kids, future ready. This capital project does exactly that, because we're thinking about keeping each and every one of our students safe, secure, and we're thinking about how we prepare them for the future and having spaces that are modern and ready for tomorrow. Just like any responsible homeowner, we have an obligation to take care of the facilities that our community has entrusted to us. And so we constantly need to be thinking about how we keep our facilities in good shape.
A committee of students, teachers, support staff, parents, administrators, and community members worked with a team of architects and engineers to develop a proposal to address some important needs of all 7 of our school buildings. In August, the Board of Education voted to adopt the recommendation of the committee.
We will be continuing the work in safety and security in this capital project that we have done over the past couple capital projects. Some of those things will be upgrading our existing camera systems, shatter-resistant film across the district to additional entrances and windows at all school buildings, updating our public address and fire systems. Our main goal is to maintain a welcoming, safe, and secure school environment for all our students and staff.
As a member of the Facilities Committee, I think it was important to take a construction aspect and looking at it from a dollars perspective of what's more cost-effective today versus down the road. I think it's a great referendum that's going to address the needs today and in the future of the district and stay within some financial restraints.
One of our top priorities is to bring our science facilities up to current standards, if not future standards, so that our students are able to behave and perform as scientists would in a real world, where collaboration and creativity and problem solving are essential for their success in the workplace.
For me, the facilities project is about creating a space for students that's most conducive to learning. That might mean ventilation systems, heating and cooling. It might also mean comfortable seating arrangements, flexible seating arrangements for students.
It's a necessity. We have to provide the environment that allows engagement. We have to have our teachers and our students actually talking to each other and engaging each other, and we need to create those atmospheres where that's possible. Not just for the tech, but for the safety, for the ease, just to make sure that our students have every single possible tool to be the most successful student that they can possibly be.
So you might be wondering how this project will affect you, our taxpayers. Most of the funds for the construction will be borrowed, and over half of the cost will be reimbursed through state aid. $3 million will come from the district's capital reserves fund. For the money we need to borrow, the estimated cost for the Guilderland taxpayer living in a home with an average assessment will be $103 a year. The Guilderland Central School District is an amazing place to be a student. The improvements planned as a part of this project will make it even better for our current students and those yet to come. For more information about the project, Please see the Guilderland website and look for additional information on district social media channels and in your mail at home.
That was a great video. Sally King did a great job, one of our students. So, with that, that's the information that we have on the website. Please continue to look at it and check back. We'll be adding some more stuff as we go along, but there's a wealth of information there now in order to assist voters coming up to October 16th. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Neil? Yep. Seema?
I don't know if it's for Neil or the Communications Committee. Is this on the agenda for communications, like how it's going to be shared with the community? Because I know we've already gotten some emails asking about it. I don't remember seeing it.
It was on our first agenda. What are the steps that are going to be taken, and we outlined some of the things that were going to be done to make sure that the community knew about.
Right, but I mean like the vote and the details of what they're voting on. Because I know we separated this vote out for May, so, you know, it wasn't confusing or wasn't problematic, I guess, in the spring. I just feel like I don't even know if this is on people's radar.
I can address that. We've got a number of things planned. We did talk about it at the last Communications Committee meeting, but today we sent out a press release that is maybe 4 paragraphs long that summarizes a lot of what Mr. Sanders just described, that I think will get in probably the TU and certainly the enterprise and get it on everyone's radar. Beginning tonight, we have been doing some presentations at PTA meetings. That's where Cliff was. And those will continue right through the next couple weeks. There's PTA meetings in every single one of our buildings. Also, the open houses that are happening in all of our buildings, there will be a showing of the video. We have a 1-page summary of the project, and I think those are the 2 concrete things for open houses. On September 20th, Neil and I will be on the agenda of the McGowanville Neighborhood Association with Pat Fahey and Peter Barber. So we'll be able to talk about this with what I anticipate will be a room full. We are also going to do 2 community sessions on October 3rd at the Guilderland Public Library to appeal to, community members and taxpayers who are not necessarily tied to school. So we'll be doing a session at 10 in the morning and then again at 7 p.m. And then the newsletter is under construction right now. We timed that for this vote similar as we do for our budget newsletter, so that's going to be a later document. So today we kind of really flooded the airways with a lot of information about this, but there'll be quite a few opportunities for people to learn about the project.
So like tomorrow, I'm supposed to go to Pine Bush for their PTA meetings because of the reference here. Is someone coming there?
Yes.
Or?
Cliff and I will be there, or Neil and I.
I just didn't know, like.
I know I'm there.
Okay.
Yes. So every PTA meeting for the next 6 weeks, you'll have at least 2 district people to talk about this.
I think it's important that we let people know why we do this at the timing that we do. I think there are several good reasons, and I remember the last time we did a referendum, one of the writers in the Times-Union was quite harsh with us about the timing. And I think that the reasons for the timing are excellent, but they ought to be made public or explained. So if one of you would like to do that, that would be.
Jump in there.
Sure. So we obviously were in touch with Albany County Board of Elections. We do get our voting machines from them, and we did ask this question, could have put the vote in May, or could have put it with the general election that's coming up in November. And really, the way they saw it as, not a good idea, because it would create a little bit of chaos because we would have multiple elections going on. We don't overlap in terms of general election districts and the school district voting locations. So we vote at schools, they vote at firehouses or other places. They also thought there was confusion about the machines because for the general election, we're all using the same machines. There may be an issue of impounding machines, monitoring them throughout the course of the vote. So there's just a lot of issues that don't align well. And they basically told us, we don't want you to be doing it at the exact same time that we're doing, because it would create voter confusion. And I'm mostly familiar with the Westmere voting, but we vote at school, and maybe voters go to the Westmere Firehouse. We're still not going to be in the same location, because school where I vote is in the Beverwick, which is in the town of Bethlehem, not at the Westmere school, so it doesn't solve all those issues of putting people together. But plus you also have overlapping districts at that point with election districts. They're not all aligned with the school boundaries. So we have an issue with the machines, number one, and number two, the confusion around overlapping districts and where am I supposed to vote, and they don't want us voting in the exact same location, and it's not the same set of voters necessarily, so it gets complicated quickly.
And what about the timing in terms of when we start the project?
Yeah, and really the fall, you'll see a lot of school districts, most school districts do have their votes in the fall. It really becomes an issue of timing, and it really starts with the end product, which is when do we want to start construction? And there are a lot of restrictions in New York State education law restrictions about doing construction when students are in school. It's very limited in terms of what we can do while students are actually still in session. So that means we have to do the bulk of our construction during July and August when kids are not here. It's a very short window of construction. So what we're really looking at is, okay, if we really need to get going right at the end of June, beginning of July, we need to be able to bid this out in February or March, award bids so contractors can get their materials and manpower together to get started right at the beginning of June. But then we have, before that, a state ed approval process that can take 6, 7, 8, 9 months. It really depends on how many projects are in the queue and how quickly they get reviewed. But that's fairly typical, so we have to back up from that. And then we also need time, once we approve this, if this project were to be approved in October, our architects have to start the design process, which is a good 6 or 7 month project. We need to think about 7 buildings, all sorts of systems that we need to have done. So really when you take the timing of fall, we're not ready to go until sometime in the spring, and then we have State Education Department review that takes us really up until about January, hopefully, when we get approval. And that sets us up in line to start doing our advertisement for bids, get the documents out for bidders and so on, award those contracts and get started. So we're looking at spring, summer 2020, even though we're going to be voting on this in 2018, because that's the process that we have to go through. So we're really trying to hit that summer cycle. So if we did it in May, we push out another year in order to start that process. And we like to be at the beginning of the process because we're competing with all of the same contractors that do other types of construction work as well, not just schools. So we like to be out early in February or March, get those bids, get those bidders while they're still looking for work, lock them up, make sure we get the best people and the manpower we need to do the job. If you come in too late, they're outbidding all over the place, and either they're not going to bid the quality contractors, or their manpower is now split and you're not going to necessarily get maybe the best team that you could otherwise. So.
Or the bids will come in very high.
But the bids will come in very high, yes, because they're not seeking that work actively. So.
Thank you.
Barbara.
I don't think we've ever done this before, but in light of one of the emails that we got from a community member, would you want to just touch base with Peter Barber and see if under public comment he might like us to say what we're going to be doing in October, so that a wider community rather than just like the school community would, know. As I said, I don't think it's ever been done before, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Seema.
So I just wanted to clarify, so that it's 50% or approximately 50% is funded by, or it can be the state, you can get state aid for that, for the whole project?
Yeah, our state aid ratio is almost 65%, and then there's a certain portion of the project for various reasons that aren't eligible for state aid. So conservatively, we're saying 50, it should be higher than that.
Okay.
But our aid ratio on eligible expenses is 64.8%, so just about 65 cents for every dollar we spend, we get back in aid.
Because I see that, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know if it were me, I would want it, like, make that really well known. I feel like it's in there, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's not like highlighted. To me, I'm like, that seems pretty important. That's just how I
We
feel.
do have that more prominently displayed in some of the other information that we're sending out.
And is the $3 million, so that makes it 42, or makes it 39, or would it be 45?
No, it'll be 39.6 thereabouts that we'll be borrowing. So it's a $42.7 million project. We're going to be able to apply about 3.1 million. So it's 39.6 will be the actual amount that we'll be borrowing. And the great thing about the 3 million is it's like cash on hand. So we'll be able to take that right out of the bank. We don't need to borrow that money, use it to pay for the construction expenses.
Barbara?
I think the thing to note, though, we have to put the money up front, and then the state reimburses us, what, a year or so down the line?
There's a process for the state to do that, but basically it'll be a 15-year borrowing, and I won't get too technical about the state aid process, but they go through this assumed repayment structure, so it doesn't really matter how you borrow, but they're going to do it over 15 years, 2 payments a year at a statewide average interest rate. When we go to borrow, we're going to borrow for 15 years, so we're going to line basically our repayment structure with the state aid structure, but we'll have our own interest rate. So we're going to pay our own debt based on how we structure the debt and how we make the payment. So we work with a financial advisor, an expert in these matters. So their job is really to look at our debt. We're going to try to layer in our debt to minimize the impact as we have expiring debt and then the new debt coming in. And then also to make sure that we're aligning our expenses, our bond, principal, and interest payments with offsetting state aid at the same ratio. So however the aid is coming in, we're going to try to make sure our payments are in line with that. And then we're also going to try to layer it into, as we have debt coming off, debt coming on top of that. But that's why we need a financial advisor to help with that process. But there is a window of time, and we won't actually start construction when everybody. So we'll have some short-term borrowing to help us through the initial construction before we do permanent financing, which is in the form of serial bonds. So short-term borrowing to cover probably the first year, and then going into the second year, that's when we'll also be able to align it with the state aid.
Sorry, I have another question. The infographic on the website, the PDF, there's like these stats on there, like 10% of student test scores climb and buildings are improved. Are these for just our district, or are these like regular, are these like?
Those are generic kind of statistics.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was like a reference, like a citation. I don't know if that's just our district or cited somewhere.
There's 3 stats. The top stat on that page, the 61%, that is from our own data.
Oh, okay.
It says 61% from the the January 2018 survey. And then there are 3 more stats that Aubrey shared with us through the collective work of the communications service. We do need to put a footnote there to say where it is cited.
I'm like, where's that?
On the 602 drafts of that one-pager that we've been through that got missed. But those 3 are more generic, but the top one is Guilderland data.
Okay, yeah, I see that because it says our community. I just didn't know the rest. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Neil. Now we move on to board committee reports. We'll begin with audit. The chair of audit is, you haven't met?
yet, so
Oh.
it was.
September 20th will be.
The first meeting, okay. Business practices, I know that committee has not met either.
Has not met.
Communications has met, and I will ask Gloria to get the report this evening.
Okay, we met on August 24th, and we unanimously elected Sean as our new chair. He's not here. So,
But Judy forgot, Gloria forgot.
I forgot, so I emailed Marie, where are the draft minutes? I have to prepare the report. And then she gets back, oh, I shared them with Sean. I went, ooh, that's right, I don't have to do this. And then I get an email from Christine, can you do the report tonight? So, you got me again. Anyway, we elected Sean unanimously. We also did item 2 already. We discussed the handbook for Better Schools. We finished that off, and hopefully, and again, as Marie referred to it, it's going to be in loose leaf form.
So as we go through this and as people see things, it's supposed to be an aid for us, so let's make it a tool that works. So as we see things that come up, we want to clarify and make it more clear, like your suggestions today, Barbara, would be very helpful. So it would be loosely defined, and we can easily replace a page, no problem. And Deb will be working at assembling those binders for us for the next meeting, I believe, hopefully. We did some talking about, we didn't get to promo it or anything or do anything with it, but the new superintendent evaluation tool, which we hope to be using this year, called Super Eval. And I believe we're going to be setting up some time for us to do some training so that we'll be comfortable with it. Hopefully we'll be happier with it than we've been with the last few years. We're also beginning this Friday, we'll be meeting this Friday, and we'll be looking at establishing some sort of a tool, evaluation tool for us to use, for ourselves, something quick that we can do each meeting, how do things go, kind of thing, and then something we can do on a 6-month basis or a 5-month basis, kind of look at where we said we wanted to be and what's working, and then finally an end of year tool. Sean had some ideas because he's used this somewhat of a tool in his work, and we have some ideas from NISBA, so I think we put our heads together. Maybe we'll come up with something that we can all be happy with and enable us to kind of have conversations before things become a problem, that we have conversations along the way and deal with issues as they come up. So hopefully that will be. We discussed our capital project communications extensively, and we did that. Marie gave us a draft, because we've been asking for a Board of Education activities calendar, just something we can look at and say, okay, what's our responsibilities in November, December, kind of a thing. So we've started that. We kind of started with a draft, and we'll be working on that this year to get that in some sort of a form that we can use year by year. And we finally decided our next meeting date will be this Friday at 8 o'clock at Farnsworth.
Thank you for that. And then, just as a reminder too, we've set a date for our board retreat, and that is October 9th.
That wasn't in our discussion,
Okay.
but we did.
Yes, October,
I just thought it
Tuesday,
would be a
October
good
9th.
opportunity for a reminder.
What was the timing for that? Do we have a time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. October 9th, 6 p.m.
Thank you for that, Gloria. And Policy Committee?
Meeting the last Wednesday of this month, if Marie can make it.
The last Wednesday of this
26.
month.
Five.
It's up to me, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Four of
what
us
power.
can make
Just
it.
like an hour ago.
Such power.
What time?
26 at
5
5
o'clock?
p.m.
I look good.
Good?
Great, thank you. And now we move on to public comment number 2. Linda, has anybody signed up this evening? Okay. Board issues, ideas, and sharing. Do we have anything this evening?
Did you have something?
No.
I was just gonna bring up the website again.
Yep.
I know with the, I don't remember when I brought it up last time, but it was, I think, last school year, and then in the summer, I just felt like the start of the school year, I got so many people, like, text, emails, about the website not being informative. Like, people said that they went to, I know the school bus app is not like the biggest priority, but like people went to it and they clicked on the link on the website and it brought them to the wrong app. So there were things like that, and there were other things where people were clicking to search for things and it was like just not found. I know that it's changed in the past, I don't know, a couple of years, and I know that is supposed to be worked on. And I get like websites take a while, like at work too, it's like I hear about this all the time. But it just seems like with the start of school, it's still problematic. I don't know. So I don't know if that's like.
Are you getting emails and stuff and things like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Like the bus stop app thing, people were like, why is this taking me to this? This is not working. So I'm like, I don't know, I don't even use the bus stop app. So I went to it and I'm like, yep, it's not working.
I'm just curious, this has got nothing to do with solving the problem, because I don't know how to solve the problem yet, but when you get the email, does it go, like, do you pass it to, I didn't get any copies of it.
No, like people like text me, or if I run into someone at like a sports like activity, people mention this. And then I'm like, I don't even have, there's not even like a transportation email, for example, for the bus stop one. There's not somebody, unless you are digging to find like an email who they can contact, I guess. They're like, who do I contact for this? So I gave them the transportation director's email, and I'm like, I know that's public, so I'm sure it's okay to give, but
Sure.
I just feel like, oh, well, this is not my job about the website. I will pass on the message,
Right.
to the district about that. And I know I'm not the only one up here who's heard about the website. I mean, several people just talked about it before we started, so I don't think,
I've just been told it's not very user-friendly, and I don't know if it's a matter of, like, I've gone to it, and I am a older person looking at the website that I feel like you're a creature of habit, so it's new, and I don't always like new, because you're used to what you're used to, so that could be a factor, or it could just simply be that I've just been, my critique of what I've been told the same, Seema, is that it's not user-friendly, that it's not as, I'm looking for something, I really have to look for it on the website to find where I want to be. That was the only critique I've been.
If you know specifics about that, like particular items, if you can let me know, then I can work with Aubrey. I mean, one of the challenges with all of this is that all of our items on the website now need to be accessible. So the number of things that can be there and in the form they used to be, we can't until we convert them in some way. So it's a heavy lift and we'll never replace all of the things that were in our old website, because it was like a giant overstuffed file cabinet. And it's been weeded out now, so it's very clean, but you can't find things.
It's almost too clean.
So we are rebuilding, and that's just a matter of time. But if there are specific items that people are looking for, please let me know, because Aubrey she's been very responsive to fix things. But if we don't hear about them, we don't know. But I agree, it takes me longer to find stuff as well, to getting used to it.
I guess I also don't know why, and I don't know how Google searches work. Like, why when we search for our district, it doesn't come up. Like, in the first, 5, 6, 7 hits, it's other things.
I remember you said that in an email, and I did it, I typed it.
No, Town of Guilderland comes, and on the town website is a link to our district. But that's not the same as our district website.
So we are working on that too.
Okay.
We don't necessarily control all the variables with that because it's Google. But I did share that concern with Aubrey, and she reached out to the person who is more expert on that part of it at the communication service. And he said it has taken longer than he would have thought for us to rise to the top. And it has to do with the structure of all the pages within the website. And I'm struggling with my own expertise here to say this. He said, we eventually will rise to the top. It's a process. So I don't know if everyone wants to Google Guilderland Schools 100 times.
When I put it
It
in,
may speed it along.
it comes out on Google as schools/Town of Guilderland.
Yeah, that's the town.
But no, it says schools first.
If you click on the first, I just did it again.
Yeah, that's what I did, and I got,
It's not like
But
one of the
instead of
first
just
5
taking you
websites.
right to the Guilderland Central School District
see, mine
homepage.
goes right to schools.
Right, but that's not
Yeah,
our
that's not our
homepage.
website.
That's not our
Oh,
website.
that's her,
Yeah.
oh, you want to go,
That's
okay,
her
I
My,
got
my
it.
point is, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be so many clicks.
Yeah,
Like, we're talking
you're right.
about, parents trying to find out information about stuff for their students that are important. Like, why are we having, 10 clicks?
Yeah,
to
you're right,
get
you have to go to, it's 3 clicks.
Right. It should be, I think, in the first 5 hits, right?
And it will be.
Okay.
It will be.
As we keep using it again.
Yes, so just Google us again and again and again.
Every day. Everybody
We'll do
Google.
10 times a day.
That shouldn't be a factor
Portal
of
fixes.
doing a new website, though.
No.
I mean, because the link is the link.
No, it actually, that's what I thought too.
The
It's-
structure of the website.
It has more to do with what's behind in the actual pages, and, because the URL is the same, it shouldn't
Right,
matter.
that's what I was
But
thinking.
that is not, it's counterintuitive, I know, but that's not the variable that's affecting how it responds on the Google search.
Yes, Tim.
Just for, to go to the user-friendly kind of idea, if you go to the if you click on board meetings and you come to the schedule, it's the 17-18 schedule, so the last date for 2018 is July 5th. So, again, if we want to get this massive turnout from the public like we have tonight, and we thank you for being here, we want to pack those seats. We got to have those meeting dates on there. So just things like that need to be tweaked up.
It's like, we're sending Chromebooks home one-to-one with students, and then, so it's like, we have this image of a tech school, which we do, but then this has to match that. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody would disagree with that, right?
Very fair.
So please send along, like, if you get those emails or texts,
Okay.
send them along, Seema, so we can start chipping away.
I don't want to keep up.
Oh, no,
No,
absolutely.
but that's one of our, that's in our handbook now. If we get an email personally, we should send it out so everybody knows what's going on.
Right. But,
Or
you know-
at least direct it to Marie, because
Right.
she needs to respond.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, I
Yeah.
know this is definitely not the first time I brought up the website.
No.
So, but these specifics.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we
Okay.
can address those as
Okay.
they go along. And we'll fix those board meeting. That's important.
Anyone else? Damien?
And just share a very quick and fun plug.
Sure.
We do have a teacher at Linwood Elementary School who is a star in the making, actually. It's Brian Geary, and Thursday night, he will be on a nationally televised episode of Wheel of Fortune. This is part of Teacher Week on WTEN on Channel 10. So the episode airs at 7 o'clock if you want to check it out. I'm
Next
sure-
Thursday or
This Thursday, right? This Thursday, so.
Just me.
Yes, so check it out. I'm
Yeah,
sure Brian did
definitely.
an amazing job.
I hope
Yeah,
so,
I
yes.
guess he's not allowed to tell us if he won or not,
Right.
but
Oh, yeah.
we will find out Thursday night, so.
You hosting a viewing party?
That's good.
Are you hosting a viewing party?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Bring everybody down.
That on the TVs.
Make it
I
an open
will.
house, right?
Thank you for that, Damien.
Yeah. Fun thing.
I don't think anybody can top that, so. That, we need a motion to go into executive session to discuss to discuss issues pertaining to the board's strategy with respect to negotiations with the Guilderland District Office Administrators Association. May I have a motion? Tim, second. Ben? Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 8-0. Thank you.
I didn't answer.
You didn't say anything. I was the only one.
Thanks for coming, have a good night.
I've got it.
Oh, I do too. Oh, I take it.
Oh, sure,
No, but
yes.
I'm taping.
Gotta balance
I can, well,
No, we haven't had it today.
Yeah.
I think they
Oh, yeah, I get it tomorrow. Oh.
Oh.
Order it through Amazon. Oh.
Hey there, Elizabeth.